For months, the world has watched Gaza through screens filled with smoke, rubble, and heartbreaking stories of families losing everything. Every sunrise felt like a continuation of the same tragedy, until suddenly, a headline appeared that stopped the world for a moment. Israel and Gaza agree to a ceasefire. But this headline is not as simple as it looks. Behind it are secret negotiations, global pressure, furious protests, shifting alliances, and political chess being played in rooms far away from the people suffering on the ground. This is not just a story about war. It is a story about power, influence, and how the world reacts when humanity reaches its breaking point. The ceasefire didn't come out of thin air. It came from a world that had finally reached its emotional and political limit. In the United States, the government found itself trapped between its long-standing alliance with Israel and an exploding wave of public anger. Massive protests filled American streets. Young voters demanded change, human rights groups increased pressure, and upcoming elections forced Washington to reconsider its stance. The U.S. realized that if it did not push for peace, it risked losing both domestic support and global credibility. For the first time in years, American leaders recognized that silence was no longer an option. Across Europe, the ceasefire exposed deep cracks within the European Union. While Ireland, Spain, Scotland, and Belgium openly condemned Israel's actions, Germany and France struggled to balance diplomatic loyalty with the moral outrage of their citizens. This internal conflict revealed Europe's uncomfortable truth. It wants to be the global defender of human rights, yet it hesitates when politics get complicated. The ceasefire gives Europe a momentary sigh of relief, but it also leaves behind questions about Europe's true values. Meanwhile, in Gaza, the ceasefire brings a breath of relief, but not true safety. Families return to shattered neighborhoods, hospitals overflow, and children remain mentally scarred from endless bombings. The damage is so deep that no temporary pause can erase it. For Palestinians, this ceasefire is not a victory. It is only a chance to survive, to breathe, and to hope that the world will not forget them once the headlines fade. Inside Israel, political pressure is rising sharply. Prime Minister Netanyahu is caught between hardline groups demanding continued aggression, moderates questioning the direction of the war, families of hostages who want answers, and international allies who are no longer willing to support endless conflict. Even within Israel, people are beginning to question whether the strategy is sustainable. The ceasefire shows something rare. Global pressure can impact even the strongest governments. At the same time, the Arab world has stepped into a more influential role. Saudi Arabia, Egypt, Qatar, Jordan, and the UAE have all worked publicly and privately to force progress. Their unified message is clear. Without justice for Palestinians, there can never be real peace in the Middle East. This moment reveals a shifting balance of power. The Arab world is no longer a silent observer. It is now shaping outcomes. Perhaps the biggest force behind the ceasefire is global public opinion. Millions of people, from New York to London, Istanbul to Jakarta, marched for Gaza. Students occupied campuses, activists organized worldwide campaigns, and ordinary people raised their voices louder than governments expected. This global movement changed political thinking. It reminded leaders that the world is watching, and silence is a choice they can no longer afford. Outro. But let's be clear. A ceasefire is not peace. It is not justice. It is simply a pause. A fragile moment where the world gets to decide what comes next. If global leaders turn this moment into real negotiations, rebuilding efforts, and honest accountability, then maybe this ceasefire will mark the beginning of something better. But if they fail, then this pause will be nothing more than a temporary break before another tragedy. The question now is simple but powerful. Will this be the start of real peace, or just another moment the world lets slip away?